Hey everybody, welcome back to the SmittyGeek channel. I am Tim, aka SmittyGeek, and thought I'd do something a little bit different in this video. I wanted to talk about a new song that just came out by the Beatles. Yeah, that's right, it's the Beatles. It's crazy that, it's been 40 some years since those guys actually recorded anything together. Two of the guys are now deceased, and through the magic of artificial intelligence, or AI, they actually released a new song. Um, and I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on that, but before I do, um, I guess I wanted to kind of share my obsession about the Beatles. Now, obviously, a lot of you guys follow me because of my random music trivia videos that I do. I'm kind of a musician. I played guitar and piano 30 some odd years as a kid. I've always been obsessed with music. Was introduced to the Beatles at a pretty early age, kind of backwards. My sister, who has been gone now, she passed away in a car accident when I was almost 10. So that's there again, 81, 82. She introduced me to the music of the Beatles through the back door. She was very much into Paul McCartney and John Lennon when they were doing their solo things in the late 70s. And she had some of their albums. So I got to know their music through some of that. And then in high school, I kind of followed them. And then in high school, I kind of got into them because there was a girl I was interested in that said, "Hey, do you like the Beatles?" And me being who I was, I said, "Of course I like the Beatles. Why wouldn't I like the Beatles?" So I found them and became obsessed very quickly. I bought the two greatest hits collections where they're looking down from inside that building apartment complex, the red one and the blue one. Wore those out. I thought the stuff was incredible, and the more I listened to it, the more I really got entrenched into becoming a Beatles fan. And of course, I always kind of gravitated towards Paul, but I always loved George and his playing, and came to appreciate him more as I became a guitar player. And I always kind of thought that those two were my favorite Beatles, Paul and then George. Um, anyway, I spent 15 years in Nashville from like 2001 until 2016. And was able to meet a few people who were kind of closely connected to them because there was kind of a local Nashville following there. Was able to meet Nancy Lee Andrews, who was Ringo's fiance prior to when he met Barbara Bach. While he was filming Caveman down in Mexico, he met her. When he met her, he was actually engaged to Nancy. She actually lived in Nashville, and she was very good friends with May Pang, who was John Lennon's mistress during the Lost Weekend period, where he was out doing whatever when him and Yoko were having troubles. Anyway, through Nancy, I met May, was able to get to know them. Also was able to meet Denny Lane, who played first with the Moody Blues and then later was part of Wings. He played several times there in Nashville, and was actually able to meet him. So I got to see some of the Nashville side of history of the Beatles. Anyway, long story short, I'm a big Beatles fan, a huge Beatles fan, know a lot of history about them. And, it was kind of cool to see this new song come out. And I just want to kind of share my thoughts. First of all, I think they released it, Thursday? Yesterday, I think was Thursday. And it's already got over 10 million views. That's incredible that they're well over 40 years old and they've already gotten 10 million views on a video. That tells you how relevant they are still, that how much people love the Beatles. I think it actually, when they posted the song to Spotify, it actually crashed Spotify. So that's crazy to think that kind of, they still have that kind of staying power. In my opinion, I don't know anyone else that has that kind of power, except maybe the Rolling Stones. I really don't know. Maybe Elvis. It's hard to say. But I think that in itself is incredible. But anyway, let me tell you about their new song. It's called Now and Then. kind of the coming about of this song. This was something, I think the original recording was done on a cassette back in the 70s when John was living at the Dakota apartment in New York there with Yoko, and he was in a room playing on the piano, I think. And what's amazing is the original recording actually has a piano, him playing the piano, but there's also a TV blaring in the background, and I think maybe some people talking. But Paul McCartney and Giles Martin, who is George Martin, their amazing producer. George Martin's son Giles obviously knew a lot about the Beatles because of his dad, and he grew up hanging out around the Beatles. So obviously he knew kind of the sound of the Beatles. So him and Paul were able to lift John's voice off of this recording. And of course, artificial intelligence learned John's voice, and it created this amazing vocal track. Now, I think when I think when Paul and George and Ringo got together in the 90s, there was a time where they were doing some stuff and, just chit-chatting and doing whatever. They went into their studio and recorded a couple of tracks. And I think this is one of the ones they kind of played around with. And in the video, you see George playing guitar, and he's playing this song because I think this is one of the songs they were kind of playing around with. I think George said he thought that it was garbage, that he wasn't really happy with it at all, but it was kind of cool that they got some video footage of him playing this song, and they were able to use it in this video that they made for this particular recording. Also, of course, Paul played piano on it and bass, and then, of course, he helped do some of the orchestrations as well. And, of course, Ringo played drums. That's why it's got the Ringo sound. Definitely Ringo. And the cool thing is Jeff Lynne, who was very close to George and knew George's sound, did a lot of stuff for George. Jeff actually came in and did some guitar work and tried to emulate some of the things that George was doing. So that's kind of how they got the sound. Now, the cool thing about the video is there's a lot of video clips that they were able to grab and put in the video. And if you're obsessed with the Beatles like I am, it was kind of emotional to watch it, because you see clips of John, you see clips of George, you see clips of them when they were together. And from what I understand, this is kind of like the last song they're going to do and release it as the Beatles. So it's kind of a poignant way of closing out, an amazing amazing time in history, not only for them as a group, but also as music history, and their legacy that they've left for music. I mean, honestly, it's really hard to find someone who wasn't heavily influenced by the Beatles, either directly or indirectly, in their music and the impact they had. So whether you like the Beatles or not, or whether or not you like this song, you have to appreciate the kind of, legendary, what's the word I'm looking for? Influence, the legendary influence that they had on modern music, not just pop, but rock, rap, you name it. It's amazing, and I think that this song is a pretty big deal to me. So I just wanted to share how I felt about it and share my thoughts about the song. And it's probably not their best song, but it's a good way to close out their legacy. So, I wish Paul and Ringo the best. I've had the opportunity to see them both in concert, and it's been a highlight in my life to actually meet or see their legend, to seeing these people that were musical heroes of mine growing up. So I was able to see them both in concert, and very blessed, very lucky I've seen that happen. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the impact you had on music. I'm grateful that the songwriting that you had, how it affected me and millions of other people, and countless musicians. There's not a time I don't listen to the Beatles where I just don't just close my eyes and listen to it. And, it's still just amazing the effect it has on people musically all around the world. not just any particular generation. It's great when you go to their concerts. You see kids with, you see families with kids and grandkids and great grandkids enjoying their music. And that's evident by the fact that there's been so many people watch this video on YouTube and try to listen to it on Spotify. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. So if you're not a Beatles fan, I hope you guys can appreciate what this means to Beatles fans. And if you're a Beatles fan or a semi-Beatles fan, listen to it with an open mind, and just kind of see the poignancy it has. So anyway, thank you guys for watching the video. I appreciate you guys. If you have any thoughts or comments, I encourage you to like. And if you like, content like this, by all means, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And to Paul and Ringo and Giles and Jeff, Lynn, thank you guys. You did an amazing job on this. I think it's a good way to kind of go out on an extremely high note for the music history that is the Beatles. Thanks again. Appreciate you guys. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.